Currently, the game that I am most excited for, by far for 2026, is Tomodachi Life Livin the Dream. Not that there's a lot of competition. Ooh, Virtual Boy. But this game looks absolutely fantastic. The previous entry in the series was one of my favorite games on the 3DS, so I've been looking forward to a sequel pretty much ever since the Switch launched. But as I've been obsessively thinking about this game and all the characters I'm gonna put in it, half of them are FNAF, I eventually started thinking about the Tomodachi Life stage in Super Smash Bros. Ultimate. And you know what? I need some shorter videos to make while trying to get my masters, so I thought it'd be fun to take a look at all of the Mii stages across the Smash series. Welcome to another episode of Level by Level. Today we're going to analyze each of the Mii-based stages and rank them on a tier list. This tier list is only relevant to the Mii stages, so an S tier here isn't necessarily an S tier with every Smash stage considered. We'll be judging them based on how fun they are to fight on, how well they capture the game they're representing, and just how much I like the vibe in general. We've done this for a few series in Smash already, namely Mario, Pokemon, and Zelda. While this video will be in a similar format, we got a big problem. See, each of those series have a symbol next to their stages to show that they are indeed from that series. Mario uses a Super Mushroom, Pokemon uses a Pokeball, and Zelda uses the Triforce. The Miis, though, don't get that luxury. There's not really a singular Mii franchise, as they're just avatars that are used across many different franchises. Tomodachi Life is a lot different from something like Wii Play. We play what? To go with that, every single one of the Mii stages in Smash has a different icon because they're part of a different series. So figuring out what actually counts for this video was a bit challenging. For the sake of this episode, any game series that has a major focus on Miis will have its stage included here. There are 3 stages that for sure count, 1 that's a bit of a technicality, and 2 that require some stretching to be classed as a Mii stage. Since I doubt I would have the chance to cover any of these later on since they're all one-off stages, I'm including all 6 in the tier list today. If you enjoy this video, please make sure to leave a like, subscribe to the channel, and let's jump right in. Now, there's not really a solid order we have to go in here, so I'll start with one of the stages that for sure counts, and then go back and forth with the technicalities. So the first stage of this video is going to be Find Mii. Find you where? Obviously, this has to count seeing as it literally has Mii in the name. Sometimes. See, this is one of the few stages to actually have a name change in different regions. While for us Americans, it's called Find Mii, in PAL regions, the title is changed to Street Pass Trademark Quest. This is also the only stage in the entire game to have a trademark symbol in its name, which is very strange. I personally like the name we have a lot better. This stage is based on a minigame in the 3DS's Street Pass app named Find Mii. Shocking. This was a very simple game where your Mii would get kidnapped and you'd have to go through each level by encountering other people with Street Pass and using their Miis as fighters. Or if you had enough play coins, you could buy animal-based fighters instead. I used to play this a decent amount back when I was using my 3DS, even though I was never able to beat it. Each Mii had different abilities based on their shirt color, and I was not able to find anyone with the shirt I needed. Hope my kidnapped Mii is doing alright. Anyway, the Smash stage itself is based on the final fight of Find Mii 2, and it's actually a surprisingly solid adaptation. Starting with the layout, this is almost pulled directly from how the stage appears on the world map, which I never realized before making this video. There are 2 distinct platforms which I think give a good amount of room to fight on. The upper right area is definitely a bit too small and close to the blast zone, but I think it works well enough, especially alongside the bigger platform to the left. Above that platform, we can see a cage containing one of your system's Miis. This is a really cool detail that we'll see in a couple stages today, and I think that makes Find Mii feel a whole lot more accurate. The cage itself is also a fun stage element, giving a small ceiling and extra platform that I don't feel is too intrusive. A lot of the times, big ceilings can prolong matches to an absurd degree, but due to how small this is, it feels more satisfying if you manage to save yourself with it. With stage hazards on, you can even hit the cage to cause it to swing around, and if you hit it enough times, you can even break it. My Mii can finally be free! Speaking of stage hazards though, we need to talk about the main highlight of the stage, the Dark Emperor. Obviously, this is the final boss from Find Mii 2 himself, so he makes complete sense to be here. For most of the fights, he'll just fly in the background, but every so often, he'll just randomly choose to give someone a buff. This can be increased attack power, higher defense, and so on. For the longest time, I thought he just gave it to the closest person, but no, according to the wiki, he actually chooses someone at complete random. I'm not sure if I'm a huge fan of that myself, but it's whatever. If you're playing with stage hazards on, some randomness is to be expected. However, he actually works slightly differently in Smash 4. He still selects a player at random, but when he does, he actually affects all characters wearing an alternate costume of the same color. So for example, if he decides to buff a red character, all other red characters would also receive that buff. That was pretty shocking to me, because that means they actually had to classify what every single costume in the game's primary color is for this to work. These colors were also all based on the 12 selectable Mii colors, which fits with Find Mii's color-based mechanics, and the wiki actually provides what color each costume in the game was classed as. Some of these choices are pretty whack, like why is male Wii Fit trainer's color black, but for the most part, they nail a lot of these. I do understand cutting this mechanic since I'm sure it would be a bit tedious to do this for Ultimate's much bigger roster, even though that does make the stage a bit less accurate. Anyway, back to the Ultimate version of the stage, don't get too comfortable with the Dark Emperor flying in the background. Randomly, he'll fly in as a bit of a mini-boss fight, which definitely fits the stage. Like many other Smash mini-bosses, you'll want to make sure that you're the one that kills it, as if you do, you'll get a special reward. The person who deals the final blow will be given a buff to all of their stats, which obviously makes them quite powerful. I think the stat boosting gimmick is overall a lot of fun, and gives this stage a fairly unique mechanic. The other main hazard I'm a bit less of a fan of, as it just causes either the right or left platform to go away for a short period of time. That can be pretty annoying if it's the big platform that falls, but luckily it doesn't really last too long, and then you can get back to fighting normally. Overall though, I think the stage is really strong. The layout is generally pretty good for fighting, and I think it's a lot of fun both with and without hazards. It's a bit of a shame that the costume color gimmick was cut, but I still think the stat boosting is fine to represent the game as is. I'll give this a solid A tier to kick us off. There's really not much that I'd want to change here. On to the first of the stages that could be considered a bit of a stretch, we have Wii Fit Studio. Obviously, this is part of the Wii Fit franchise, as we actually have Wii Fit Trainer as a character on the roster. While I could see some disqualifying this as a Mii stage because of that, if we actually look at the Wii Fit franchise, we're playing as Miis. Now granted, the part of the game that this stage is based on doesn't really use Miis, but I'm not going to make an entire video on the Wii Fit stage of Smash, so why not cover it here? Personally, when I played Wii Fit, I wasn't much of a yoga person and preferred to play the other mini games like the one where you fall off a building and the one where you can't put out a candle. Whoa, wait, did you guys see that? The Smash stage definitely nails the look of the yoga portions of Wii Fit, and it is a pleasant enough aesthetic that I enjoy seeing the Omega and Battlefield versions online. I can't say I really love the layout itself though. Granted, they really did not have a lot to work with for the stage design, but they didn't even try to make this very unique. It's pretty much just a flat plane with platforms that come in and out if you have hazards on. It's cute that the platforms are based on the Wii balance board, and it's especially cool that that's carried over to the Battlefield version of the stage, but gameplay-wise, they aren't very special. The worst part about Wii Fit Studio though is that it's actually a walk-off, meaning you can just walk into the blast zones. Stages like these are usually not very good because you can just camp off screen and then kill someone at zero with a back throw. In order to have fun on stages like this, it feels like you have to actively throw the game, which I'm not really a fan of. Other than that, the only mildly interesting thing here is that there's a big mirror in the background, and because of that, the Alucard Assist trophy can't spawn here because he's a vampire. That is kind of a cute Easter egg, but it is just removing something from the stage, so I don't think it helps it out that much. I'm putting Wii Fit Studio in F tier. It's not necessarily a bad representation of the area in Wii Fit, it's just not an interesting area in the first place. Really, there's no reason to ever play here. Moving on to what's probably the most talked about Mii stage in the Smash community, we have Wuhu Island. This is based on Wii Sports Resort, which is absolutely one of the most iconic Mii games. And it's the only game here that I never owned. I always wanted it, but never got the chance to have it for myself. I did get to play it quite a bit at friends' houses, but unfortunately, I never added it to my own collection. That's right, I was not ballin'. But anyway, Wuhu Island is an incredibly iconic location, so it totally deserves to be represented in Smash. This is what's known as a traveling stage, which will basically have its platform move fighters across the island to fight in different locations. There are 9 different spots that the platform will stop at, each representing a different set of Wii Sports Resort games or locations. The simplest spot is the sword fighting arena, which is pretty much just a flat plane. This was the minigame I played the most by far with my friends. I just loved swinging my Wiimote like an insane person. I also like that this spot is used for the Battlefield and Omega versions of the stage. They really couldn't have picked anywhere better. Since this stage does take place on an island, there are a few spots that are found in the water. You can fight on a couple rocks, on top of a boat, or even just on a gate. These areas are nice to feature Smash's swimming mechanic, which isn't seen a ton in the game. It's also very funny that if you go under the boat, you instantly die. Most drown. Coming off the water, there's even a beach area to represent the iconic Frisbee minigame. Now this does act as a walk-off, but in traveling stages that is much less of an issue because you can just wait a few seconds for the platforms if someone feels like camping. That walk-off criticism can also apply to the fountain area, but I don't want to stand in the blast zone there because the fountain is a lot of fun to goof around with. It'll slow down the fall of anyone that goes on top of it, which I just find to be pretty entertaining. The most complex areas are likely the 3 that can be found as the stage travels up Maka Wuhu. There's a rickety bridge with a bunch of holes in it, a cliff edge edge, which is perfect for throwing someone off, and of course, a spot at the mouth of the volcano. I like that last one the best as it feels extra good being able to spike someone down into the pit. That covers all the areas we get to stop at, but I still haven't mentioned the traveling platform itself. This will also change as you go through the course, getting a slightly different platform layout each time. The main one though is what we start on, and unlike Delfino Plaza, if we have hazards off, the entire fight will take place just on this. The platform layout here is actually really solid, being somewhat similar to Smashville but with upward slopes at the edges. Now yes, the word slopes probably just gave most competitive players heart attacks, but as someone who enjoys competitive play myself, I don't find the layout here too bad at all. What probably is the main issue for most is the fact that the stage allows for sharking. This is pretty much a mechanic where you can go underneath a platform and then pop back up through it. While I can understand this not being great for competitive play, I also think it can be pretty fun. It's not too horribly intrusive, so even if it's not a competitive stage, I can at least have fun here as someone who generally prefers simpler choices. Add on the wide array of locations and casual matches, and I think this easily earns an S tier. It's a great representation of an iconic location that's at least decently fun for both casual and competitive players. But that brings me over to what's likely my biggest stretch of the video. I want to talk about Pilotwings. I know what a lot of you are probably saying, Pilotwings is not a Mii game. At all. In fact, the first Pilotwing games came out way before the Miis did, so why is this stage in this video? Wait, is that Wuhu Island? Yeah, so while Pilotwings definitely didn't start as a Mii franchise, when it was revived for the 3DS in 2011, it got a game that you had to use Miis in to fly over Wuhu Island. Since at least part of the stage is representing that aspect of the series, I think it's fair enough to count Pilotwings for this video. It doesn't start with the Mii content though. Instead, we begin on top of a plane overlooking the area from the third lesson in the original Pilotwings. I kinda like that the land here maintains the retro look, as it makes it stand out from Wuhu Island later on in the stage. It's honestly really cool to represent both eras of the franchise like this. I'm sure it was only done since they could easily reuse basically everything from the Wuhu Island stage, but it's a very smart reuse and doesn't feel repetitive. That's mostly because the flight itself takes place entirely on two different airplanes. The first is a red plane made up of two different layers. While it's definitely not competitive due to the body of the plane acting as a wall, I think this is a great casual stage as it maintains that simplistic appeal that hazardless Wuhu Island had. It's very fun trying to use the wall for combos or laddering people through the wings. With hazards on, the stage will also tilt around, which I think is subtle enough to not be annoying, but impactful enough to change how you have to play. With hazards on, you'll also eventually transition the fight into a yellow plane. On the hazardless version, you'll just stay on the red plane the whole time. But it's very funny because the camera will still shift like the plane is going to switch, so it's super obvious that something is missing. As for the layout of the yellow plane, I'm not as much of a fan of it, but it's still pretty solid. It's mostly one giant flat plane, but there are two very tiny platforms under the wing. These are extremely powerful camping spots, as they can be somewhat risky to reach and they allow for sharking. Personally, I think the stage would be much better without them, but luckily, the plane will eventually switch back to the red one. It just takes a lot longer than, say, a traveling stage transition. Besides the minor camping issue though, I think the stage is great. In Smash 4, my brother and I used to play on here a ton. It really balances that simplicity and casual appeal very well. The fact that they managed to reference both the original Pilotwings and Pilotwings Resort is also very cool. I think I'm gonna put Pilotwings in S tier. I was leaning toward A because of that pretty rough camping spot, but since the hazardless stage only uses the red plane, the tryhards that would utilize camping probably wouldn't play with the yellow plane anyway. But now it's time we finally talk about the stage that got me making this video in the first place, Tomodachi Life. I don't really like it. Despite being based on easily my favorite game here, I just don't find the layout as fun as many of the other stages we've looked at. I'm super happy Tomodachi Life is represented in Smash, but I'm personally fine with never touching this stage. Let's start with the positives though. I think they capture the vibe extremely well. This is based on the main location for Tomodachi Life being the apartment building, which makes total sense. This is where your Miis would live in the game, and that's exactly the case here too. The stage is made up of 6 rooms, each of which containing a Mii from your console. Again, this is a great touch to personalize the stage to the player. Every copy of Tomodachi Life is personalized. Miis will also be given a random background for their room, which is a big feature in both Tomodachi Life and the upcoming Tomodachi Life Living the Dream. The Miis will even wear a random set of clothes from the original game as well. So aesthetic-wise, they nailed this fairly well. Gameplay is really where the stage starts to suffer for me. It's made up of 4 different floors that you can jump between, which fits the tall apartment building well, but I just don't find it very fun to fight on. Even as someone that loves playing as Super Duper Mario, I don't think even the extreme ladder combos make it worth it. It just ends up feeling both cramped and difficult to attack the opponent. It's hard to really explain why I don't like it, but I feel like there are just too many platforms and I don't like that they entirely eclipse the platform below them. Now it does make sense why they did this, obviously that's how the apartment building is designed, mind, I just don't really enjoy my time fighting here. But don't worry, we can make it worse. I think Tomodachi Life has the worst hazard in the entirety of Smash Ultimate. I didn't put it in last place on my hazard ranking from years ago, but I've definitely changed my mind on it now. With hazards on, instead of the apartment walls being see-through, they only become see-through once a player is inside. This leads to a ton of walls flashing in and out, which is really annoying. They don't even affect gameplay, it's purely a visual annoyance. I don't think even the most casual player would prefer the stage like this, which is why I think it's the worst hazard despite its lack of true gameplay influence. I'm really happy they decided to fix this with hazards off, as it makes the stage far more bearable to fight on. So with all that said, I think it belongs in C tier. It represents the game quite well and makes sense as a stage choice, it's just not super fun for me to fight on personally. But I said there would be 6 stages in this video. What could possibly be the last stage we have yet to talk about? Looking at Ultimate Selection screen, there's really nothing else that could count as a Mii stage. I mean, you can play as Miis in Mario Kart 8, but I'm not going to talk about Mario Circuit. The stage we still have to talk about is actually not an Ultimate at all. While this game does bring back every fighter in Smash history, unless you specifically love Twilight Princess Zelda, it does not bring back every stage. There are 17 stages that did not make the jump into Ultimate, and as it turns out, one of them is a Mii stage. That would be Rainbow Road, because you can play as a Mii. What I actually mean is Miiverse, which has Mii in the name, so I think I should at least cover it. Miiverse was essentially Nintendo's own social media site where people could make posts or screenshots about games. I honestly had a lot of fun with it when I was younger, and you could find some pretty funny stuff there. To go with that application, Smash 4 eventually got a Miiverse stage for free in an update. Now layout-wise, this is literally just Battlefield. Obviously Battlefield is a great stage, but we already have plenty of very similar triplats. Aesthetically, I do really like Miiverse though. The green and white color scheme from the platform translates really well here. Besides the color scheme, the element that really made the stage unique was its connection to Miiverse. This wasn't just based on the app, but it actually worked with it. As you fought, the background would eventually get filled with artwork from other players that represent the characters in the match. This was such a cool concept, and even after the fight, you'd be able to make your own art for other people to see. I love that it was character specific too. I'm sure it really made all 3 Corrin fans feel like a stronger community. However, I think there's something I can't avoid mentioning about this. If you give people the ability to create art, they're gonna make some content that probably is not appropriate for younger audiences. Especially if the people making that art are Smash players. I'm not sure how strict Nintendo was with moderation, but I certainly remember seeing some art that I would not want to show on YouTube. This was a really fun idea for a stage, and I know I had a lot of fun with it back in the day, but I can fully understand it being cut. Most of that is certainly because Miiverse itself is just dead, but even if it wasn't, I'd understand Nintendo not wanting to deal with the moderation nightmare. With the Wii U servers officially being shut down, this stage is now just a shell of its former self. Some might say that's for the better, but for me, I think that makes Miiverse belong in B tier. It's just about the most basic possible Smash stage, but represents Miiverse extremely well. Because they're both dead. But anyways, that's it for this video. Are you mad that I didn't talk about Town and City since you can get a Mii mask in City Folk? Let me know in the comments. Somehow even this video turned out to be longer than I expected, but whatever, I still had fun with this. Speaking of videos, let me know if you all would like to see some videos on Tomodachi Life in the future. Like I said, I'm really excited for the game, so if you all have any good ideas for videos, feel free to let me know. But before I go, I've got to thank my members being Aaron0729, Anton3669, Fredbear Steiner, Smuggy, Maidzo2, Guy112, Danny Gaming Central, Young Smoky VP7, Zach Pro, Flame765, Peanut Brown of Gallery, Gorposaurus, Extreme 5026, BFDI Macaron, Stephen Hafner, Mikey711, Bell Slimes, Night Vision 101, PDX, Wilbur, Knight, Jenny, Mogo Mogoboat, Triple Double, Stuffy Ant, Rich229, Jehojim, Leonhard von Hevering, Magnus and Larslot, Trifector, Tibby, Mario Master 101, Hippopotamus, Levi Strux, Nuclear, Cassie Channel, Blessed Tiger, Wyatt Derpy, Yanni the Duck, Trader Mo, Mevins 2001, Display Changer, B Major 2003, Sir Musty, Belandor, Cinder CC, Jade Avery, Thicky Reiki, Engineer TM, CW McCain, Tesseract, JubeTube, Jameson Pageson, Zfrost, Keep, and Christian Flattery Sequel Edition. But anyways, dry bones for Smash, and I'll see you guys next time.